Chicago Sports Update here on IAP Podcast. This is Matt,
And this is Brandon.
and I guess I'm kind of grateful for the White Sox to have done some shuffling this week, or excuse me, today actually, in sending Gordon Beckham over to the Anaheim Angels in exchange for a player to be named later or cash. The big consideration is cash, and or I guess the key word is "or" in the entire deal. Similar to what happened with what happens to be his name? Jesse Crane, having gone down to Tampa Bay last year and getting one player, maybe two, depending on how his performance was. I don't even think he played a single game for him. So that was yeah. Woohoo.
I can't figure out what's a worse move: the Cubs getting rid of Barney or the Sox getting rid of Beckham. What are these teams thinking?
Now, keep in mind, had Beckham actually played for the Cubs, his number would be under very strong consideration to be retired. He would be welcome back and given in the Ring of Honor.
But because he was a White Sox, all he gets is a statue.
Yeah, well, I don't know if anyone's really going beating down the door to find to find a memorable moment from him, and
He'll still get a statue. He'll be right next to Baines.
yeah, dude, definitely not. Statue. We have a really bad habit of that happening.
Hey, this guy played here for 7 years. Let's build him a statue. That's the South Side. North Side is like, hey, this guy played here for 7 years. Let's retire his number.
No, this guy's white. Let's honor him.
What was his batting average here? 214. Yeah, let's retire his
All
number.
right, that sounds good. Yeah.
He was a great clubhouse guy, though.
Just like the what's his name, Saint Mark DeRosa.
Yeah.
So, all joking aside, though, yes, Gordon Beckham is no longer the failed experiment. I jettisoned on that one. I really want to say a couple years ago. I can't remember if I ended up talking about it on here, but I really quit on that. It just wasn't there. I just wasn't seeing it.
I don't think many people were
Apparently,
outside of the White Sox organization.
I don't know if that's a Kenny Williams move that was his last ditch effort to kind of have some control over the organization or the team, but well, that's over because 240 in the American League, if that, is just not cutting it, and his defense was rather replacement level, just average, I guess.
Yeah. I don't even know if that's just American League, but I mean, just baseball in general. You can't really bat that and be around for a long time unless I don't know, unless you're Gordon Beckham.
That's really kind of it. I don't know. It's tough. It's really tough to say. His injury didn't help him that 1 year. I think was that 2 years ago, maybe last year. I don't know what his damage was. He talked. He was always very good to talk to for the media. He was always good for a soundbite, well spoken, pretty thoughtful individual, but almost
Great hair.
a stereo. Yeah, well, we all know what happens to guys that like hair here on the radio, but gosh, he always had too much confidence. I thought more confidence than I think he deserved or was entitled to talk about. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah. And I mean, is that because he was a superstar at Georgia?
Yeah.
You know, like he was he was a high draft pick, right? Wasn't he a first round
pick, number 8 in
Yeah.
that draft.
So that happened. I mean, it's not just him that happens to. That happens a lot in all sports, all the major sports. So you could see why it happened. I mean, the Bears are still giving Shane McClellan a chance at a position that he's never played because he was a first round draft pick. And if he was not a first round draft pick, he would have been cut last season probably. You know what I mean? So
I think there's a combination of things there with Shane McClellan and the fact that it was very talked about. It was very much talked about here that the Packers were going to draft him. And whether that was noise or whether that was truth, we'll never know. But that I really hope didn't play into a factor with drafting him. And it would be very disappointing if that was one of the main reasons why they ended up drafting him. Because, boy, I'd really love to see him struggle on that linebacking core there.
yeah, if he was as bad, though you don't know in that situation if they put him at linebacker right away, maybe he has time to learn the position and would be okay now. Who knows? I think the whole thing was mismanaged. Drafting him, I don't think was the best idea. Um, Putting him at a position where he was not going to succeed was probably not a good idea. Then in this is his third season, right?
Yeah.
Uh, okay, now we're going to try you at linebacker, and you have very little time to learn this and be effective with it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it wasn't fair to him. It's not fair to the Bears. It's the whole thing is bad.
Yeah, it is. And moving more so onto them now. Two preseason games in the book. Next one coming up tomorrow night. What have we really learned? The offense is certainly capable still, which is very nice to see. The defense, some improvements, some places, and
Linebackers are
special.
bad still. I mean,
Yeah,
besides Briggs, linebackers are bad.
yeah, that's not going to be a good thing.
In the safeties, they have a lot of them.
But no one,
That's all I can say is they have a lot of them.
yeah, and no one's wanting to win the job. It's kind of like it very much is a race to the bottom
No
here.
one has looked awful like some of the safety play last year, and no one has looked good enough where you're like, okay, he's your starter. You know what I mean? So it's kind of
Yeah,
like they're a bunch of guys.
yeah.
Not too bad, not too good. So not uh, not the strongest position for the Bears.
No, certainly not. And it's between that special teams.
Ugh,
Gosh,
that's really bad.
it it's kind of frustrating because for the past couple of seasons, not even including last season, but what we've been used to and how we've really come of age as Bear fans and what we've been used to seeing. Sure, the smash mouth monster of the midway defense, but also uh, the guaranteed phase of special teams, and that it was always going to either guarantee your opponent tough field position or you were going to give yourself good field position, just a real win on each side. Oh, and also you could trust your kicker, or excuse me, your placeholder and your long snapper to make the appropriate adjustments given whatever the game situation is and help Robbie Gold be as good as Gold.
Uh, yeah, it, and how's that working out?
Yeah.
Not great.
No,
And
it's
it's
really
not just
not.
like the like the field goal kicking game that is bad. The coverage team is awful. They don't have a return man. It was Eric Weems, and they cut him because he kept fumbling and making bad decisions. I mean, so they like who's did they even announce who's going to be returning kicks tomorrow? I
No, they haven't. And I heard that Santonio Holmes could do it. That news, Santonio Holmes was signed by the Bears over the weekend, this past weekend,
It hasn't been
to
cut by
take
the team
over.
yet.
Yeah, hasn't
That's
been
the
cut by the team.
news.
That's yeah. Well, the that third wide receiver spot. I don't want to say it's throwaway. You need it. You need it to be competent, and I think anything is an upgrade over Devin Hester and what he did,
Well, last year
because
was really Earl Bennett.
that's, yes, true, very much true. Previous years, Devin Hester was the alleged, at one point, number one receiver, but then they saw what a real receiver looks like and said, "Oh boy, you're bad." Okay, just stand on the other side and just run. Get your sprints in because that's all he was good for.
Yeah, well, ugh. He did have some nice plays at receiver, but it wasn't on a consistent enough basis where it was worth even, your third receiver.
Right.
And it was probably just, I mean, even though if he could have been a really good third receiver maybe, but like it wasn't worth the whole like I got to tell you where to line up again. It's week 14. Like I'm still telling you where to line up. It probably wasn't worth the trouble. Like you're actually a pretty good third receiver, but it's just not worth it. Because I mean, I always thought that no, he wasn't. Obviously, wasn't number one. Obviously, not number two. But like, I thought he was good enough to be a three, maybe a four. And he did have some nice receptions for long gains. That's stupid where they kept trying to do the end around. Like everyone in the world knew, like obviously Devin Hester is taking this because he's not smart enough to fake it, so he's taking it. And that wasn't like, it didn't fit his game. People thought because, or the Bears thought because he was such a great returner, the best of all time, that it was he had some sort of, I don't know, like he was faster than he really was. You know what I mean? Like, and he wasn't that fast. He just on his returns, he made the right decision. Like when he made the right decision, he was gone. But it wasn't because he was like so much faster. There were faster guys in the NFL. But
He really lucked it. I almost want to say there's, from what I've seen of football, and of course how they've managed the return game out of, or I guess instituted rules to write out the return game. Um, it, I don't want to say a lot of it's luck, but when everything comes together, it really looks pretty. It just doesn't come together all that often, and we can see that maybe, now you see three returns for touchdowns every, I don't know, 4 weeks, maybe an entire season. Sometimes you just don't see it that often, and well, certainly a lot, big-legged kickers.
well, and all the
Uh,
rule changes too.
yeah, and all the rule changes certainly have eliminated that. But uh, he wasn't. He was a very good return man, and probably the best we'll ever see, especially now. But I never got the impression that he had the aptitude to learn a receiving game. I never really saw that. And certainly being called a top flight receiver under Mike Martz, oh boy, no, no, it's not. That's not the place to do it. And it's disappointing to see some of those those futile times, because that's really all it really was. It was just futile exercises, and I don't want to say time wasters, but boy, the futility involved.
Well, and it, I don't know with the March thing. Like, I don't know if maybe their egos, that coaching staff's egos, were so big that like, well, we can get it done with him, but Miami only used them as a returner. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
they weren't allowed to basically just have a returner on the roster, so they called him, a cornerback, but he didn't play really. I mean, he didn't play cornerback. He was only a returner, and the Bears drafted him for his return, his return skills. They didn't draft him to play corner. They didn't draft him to play receiver. It was just a return man. And then I
Mm-hmm.
think they probably didn't realize the success he would have. And when they saw it, they're like, well, he is such an elite athlete that, it's worth trying at receiver. And it was worth it because if he showed if he showed 10% of the ability to play receiver as he was a return man, he would have been okay. But he couldn't grasp pretty much anything of, of the position. Eventually